100 years ago, Max Planck suddenly proposed to explain how light worked that was made out of chunks or photons. And before that, everybody thought it was continuous ever since Newton. So it was quite a shock that there's this digital nature to the universe. And when we do things like build quantum computers, which is what I do, then we're tapping into this digital nature of the universe and effectively programming the universe to do the stuff we ask it to do.
I think we should be very careful about artificial intelligence. If I were to guess at what our biggest existential threat is, it's probably that. So we need to be very careful with artificial intelligence. We are summoning the demon. We are summoning the demon. You know all those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, you sure you can control the demon? Doesn't work out.
We're tapping into this digital nature of the universe and effectively programming the universe to do the stuff we ask it to do.
We are summoning the demon.
Now, where's Mandela? Well, Mandela's dead. Well, Mandela's dead. Well, Mandela's dead.
We are now becoming the objects of conscious design. And the implications of that are just enormous, because until now, we've been reshaping the world around us, and we can see how dramatically it's been changing. I mean, we've really reshaped the landscape, and we've built a society and altered society and changed everything that's external to us. But somehow we imagined that we were going to remain the same, that we ourselves were not going to be caught up in this process, and that's not in fact true.
Scientists still don't know exactly what's happening.
Probably the most magical thing is that in quantum physics, an object can be in more than one place at the same time.
We expect that if there's some missing physics that we need to understand space-time in a way that will tell us whether time travel is possible or restricted in various ways, this is where we expect the new results to come from. You could enable your quantum computer to send particles backwards through time along a closed time-like curve. Think of it as a wormhole that loops back around to the same point in space-time, all totally in keeping with general relativity.
But for those willing to let their imaginations roam, there's a glimmer of hope in at least one place. It's where space, time, the nature of existence itself meet in head-on collisions inside the biggest, most complex machine ever created by man.
Well, blasting information-coded particles through such a time loop could supercharge a quantum computer enough to solve some otherwise impossible computations.
Alright, we'll say right off at the bat, if you've not had any experience with this Mandela effect, as being coined, the term or phrase, then this video is probably not for you. If you've already got it in your mind, it's some sort of a hoax or fabrication or whatever. If you don't believe there is something to it, then this video is not for you. Just plain and simple. So you might want to just move on. A couple other points real quick. If you're one of these short attention span folks, you might just want to go to the front of YouTube and watch a Saturday Night Live clip, you know, or something like that, something a little more short, because I'm going to take my time this time. I've got a lot of ground to try and cover. And One last thing, if you don't like the way I look, and close your eyes. Of course, you'll miss what I'm doing, I guess, in that instance. People complain about everything. I'm tired of trying to cater to the unintelligent or the foolish. If you want to watch this, then watch it. I'm just some guy with my opinion. How about that? Just real simple. If you don't, turn it off. You ain't got to be stupid on your comments. If you are one of those that have experienced the Mandela effect, again, as it's being coined or termed, then I want to delve into that a little bit deeper about some of these things, because I think we're actually dealing with two separate things happening. And again, just bear with me. One last thing I will say this. People talk about my ring. I mean, people even talk about my ring. It's a $30 steel ring. It matched my wedding band. It's not even a real gem. It's like a decal or something like that. But because it was black, it matched my wedding band. My wife bought that down there at the mall for about 30 bucks. Okay, so let's see what else. The hat I bought for my dad back in the day. He passed away, so it became mine again. Now, let's see. I guess that's it. Alright, I invite all of y'all to pretend you're a cow. Bear with me. I'm going to go and jump a lot of places. I'm normally standing up in my videos. I thought I'd sit down and went and got me a board because I wanted to show you a couple of things maybe that we could touch on this. Let me say this. I'm going to be touching on two main basic points of reference. One will be in the scientific field, and the other, of course, in the spiritual field. And both of those interrelate in this discussion, the things we're going to do. So I invite you to be a cow and pretend you're in a great big green field and there's plenty to eat. But everybody knows a cow ain't going to eat the whole field. So just glean what you can, take what's good for you or whatever you need, whatever you can use, and disregard the rest. Real simple. Remember, there's other cows in the field with you, and we're all out here trying to eat, maybe from a different clump. And so those that know me, I will have a tendency to just sort of throw out a thought or a phrase, and sometimes it will be intended for a certain group, and if it doesn't apply to you or you don't understand it, then just disregard. It's real simple. Glean what you can. But just like a cow, I would say this, while you get whatever you can, don't forget to chew on your cud a little bit, regurgitate it, and think about the things that I share with you today, and before passing it off in the drought as waste. Now, with all of that said, I want to touch base real quick about Mandela effect, again, as it's being termed, and what that is. And most of you, if you're watching this at this point, you probably already have an idea. However, I think that we're experiencing something a little bit more drastic than what is, as some have termed the new word, confabulation. The idea of Mandela is where, or the Mandela effect is where people are having the same memory. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of people. We've talked about mirror, mirror on the wall, and come to find out it's magic mirror, or at least so we understand in this reality that we're in. There is the idea that it was put to Mandela because Nelson Mandela, so many people remember him in prison, supposedly dying, and they can remember sitting and watching it on television, watching the funeral procession, the whole works, and therefore they have this, and we've called it the Mandela effect.
Well, Mandela's dead.
George Bush, and why there are no more Mandelas 8 years ago. Mandela is dead. Bush pronounces Mandela dead. However, a great example is like the old movie Casablanca, where the man there, he says, play it again, Sam. And come to find out, that might not have been the line in that movie. But nobody freaked out about that because we weren't seeing drastic changes. It was just something that most people thought, oh, okay, well that was just, we remembered it wrong or something like that. I think most of us, when we seen Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca, were probably pretty young and wouldn't remember anyway. Now, excuse me. That brings me to the second point. What we are seeing now is not so much things that were way in the past changing, like the Nelson Mandela, and I want to touch on that one more time in just a second. Again, you're going to have to bear with me if you want to get through this video. Like I said, I'm going to take my time, turn it off if you don't like it, whatever. But at least I'm sharing, I can wash my hands of it. So, in the things that we're seeing now, I think, the changes that people are talking about are more recent kind of changes. We have a lot of it that we've thrown out of the window in the idea that we see packaging different, like Kit Kat used to have a dash in the middle of it. People talk about Fruit Loops used to have the F-R-U-I-T, and things like that. Captain Crunch used to say Captain, and now it just says Captain, you know, with the apostrophe in. And a lot of these things could be branding. That's a lot of what people are saying. But there are other things that people have noticed that don't make sense to them. And here's, you know, the example, for instance, the scriptures that people are talking about have changed. And then, of course, you've got that Christian group that people are saying, well, it's impossible for the Bible to be changed. And so I want to touch on that as well. Again, just got to really bear with me so we can get to the why this is all occurring and why so many people are seeing things and why so many others aren't. And how this is creating such a clash or division, just like everything else. Every time you turn around, it's a new division. And what I brought to the forefront here was not to create division by no means. As much as I know and what I've seen and experienced and shocked, I thought, well, hey, you know, I throw this out there and let those others that I know see if they're aware of it, and wow, to find out so many really weren't aware and have gone crazy with it. But it really has brought a lot of the bad stuff to the surface, if you will. You can see who is in what category sometimes, just for the simple belief systems that people carry, I guess. All right, so let's look at this a couple of ways. Mandela, I want to start with that just so that we can move forward, because I want to talk about the more current events that we're seeing, and I don't think necessarily calling it a Mandela effect at this point. I would prefer to maybe even coin the term what we're seeing now as a quantum effect or a quantum reality, and I'll explain that. But on this Mandela, there's about 3, maybe 4 different possibilities that people have put forth as to why so many thought he died. One is that maybe for political reasons or whatever, that his death was staged, and that's what they remember. There was a staging of that event, and then pops up over here as some sort of new leader and president in Africa. The second idea that is being proposed is the fact that maybe he really did die, and what they have done is taken and created a doppelganger or a double through cloning. We remember Dolly, the first sheep that they cloned, and they were cloning way before Dolly came to the forefront, I'll grant you that, in the experimentation. And we know for a fact that any government that has the possibility, hey, we can make clones, you know somebody somewhere, nutty mad scientist just like at CERN, somebody somewhere is going to dabble where they shouldn't, and that's going to be. So cloning is not an unreal thing. We've seen some of the things in the lab where they've grown human ears on the back of lab rats. I mean, we're talking some really crazy things in the scientific field that they have done. And all in the name of bettering our health or prolonging our life. And we see a lot of transhumanism, they call it, where they're trying to take and implant the memories of the human mind or the brain into computers and robots and things like that. And there's movies talking about that, and we get into time travel concepts. That's a lot of stuff that's being pushed right now. A lot of people are under the idea that we've shifted dimensions, or that we're on another planet, we're in another Earth. We're, you know, those of us that have had these experiences, and we're noticing them more and more frequently, and some strange things and crazy stories come out. Now, we're here on YouTube, and it's just like anywhere. If you go into a market or any place really where there's a gathering, large gathering of people, you're going to have all kinds of different theories and different opinions and different points of view. And if we would be intelligent human beings and just try for a moment to think that this we have here, this communication, this technological advancement that we're using here to be able to communicate without wires and stuff. I'm talking to you where you're at, and you're way far away from me, and here we can discuss and exchange ideas and actually come together, and if we're intelligent about it, sharing our theories one with another, and our ideas, our goals, our intents, all of these things that we do, we can actually learn and help each other to grow. I'm just some old country boy, that's all, folks. I learn from you and you learn from me, maybe. If there's something I can say or show or share and it helps you in some way, then that's great. Like I said, I want to throw out some phrases, and to some of you it'll sound off the wall, or you'll just automatically disagree, and some of you it'll be that epiphany moment that you'll get. So, like I said, there's a lot to cover. You're going to have to bear with me. I'm sorry, I'm slow about getting straight to the points. It's just because there is so much to try and cover here. But again, the cloning issue is a reality, and people can look into that. There's so many different theories on it, but that's not really my subject matter. I'm just saying that's one of the theories as to why people might have thought he was dead, and then all of a sudden we see him again. There is some photographics out there, photographic evidence that shows where Mandela, while he was in the prison and stuff like that, certain features, his nose seemed flat more than when we see his later exposure in, I think he was at a basketball game, and the photographs there that were taken of him look like some really large differences. Now, people change with age and things like that, we understand, but certain bone structures and certain features usually stay around the same. And so there is some theories that maybe the second Mandela, the one that did die in 2013, was perhaps either a clone or a double, or maybe it was a double or a clone that was killed or faked at the first part, and the real one went underground and come up. I mean, really, the theories just go on and on and on, and you can really get into some science fiction ideas. I do want to say that science fiction and supernatural are two different things completely, even though they do have a tendency to intermingle as well, because some stuff is on a supernatural basis, and it is so mind-boggling, if you will, that it seems science fiction for sure. Now, with that said, I want to, as I had previously coined the idea of a quantum change or a quantum effect. A lot of people don't like the idea of Mandela effect because it does have to do with memory. And a lot of us have misremembered things. People talked about the Jiffy and Jif peanut butter. I really don't remember. It seems like it might have been Jiffy at one time. I know there was Jiffy popcorn. We got some of that. You know, the little thing that pops up and all of that deal. I believed all my life it was Charles Schultz. But somebody with the last name of Schultz, could have been a paid in tell, might actually know. Who knows? Says, no, there was never a T, but I always remembered a T, so maybe I was just wrong. And but I collected Snoopy for so long and all of that and all them comics and things. I'm pretty sure it had a T in it, but that's just me. So anyway, some of the things I know that I've seen change, that I've shared in some of the previous videos, because we have this distance between us, and because I'm sharing what I know or what I've experienced, many will write that off. Oh, well, yeah, that's a hoax or something. Well, look, I have nothing to gain by this. I'm spending my time here just trying to share what I've gleaned and what I know and what I understand from my point of view and my perspective. That's really pretty much what it is. You can take it or leave it. I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. I'm not trying to trick you in any way. I'm Photohelix. I'm just some crazy old guy. And here's the thing. Photohelix is sharing things, and I'm not making a dime. I'm not making money. There's no fame here for me or fortune in either way. So I'm not trying to mislead you. I am just trying to share with you and help you. My videos are about warning you and exposing things that are taking place so that you might be able to be aware and not caught unaware, as it were. Again, things that I just throw out. I want to mention one thing here. Bear with me, and then we'll get into the good stuff, okay? Over here, a lot of people have been talking about the changes that they've seen in their Bible. And a lot of the things that I'm hearing, unfortunately, are not true. There's a lot of things people are saying, oh, this changed. And I know some of it hasn't. Some of the stuff people are saying is not true. That's fact. That is a fact. But I want to read to you just a couple of verses real quick. And I think everybody should go and look these for themselves. But this isn't where I want to dwell. I'm not here just to talk in this particular video about the scriptures. I want to discuss why you're seeing these changes, whether it's in your labeling, because we know some of it's not packaging, because you can go back through history now, according to history, that we can see, and it's different. You can look at your movies and the things where those have changed, about build it and they will come, build it and he will come, life is a box of chocolates, life was, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. All of these different changes you've seen, they're all intermingled and all interrelated. And here's the point I'm trying to make. Now, I do want to say this hasn't changed right here on this part. I want to read this real quick before I go any further. And this is sort of for your biblical skeptics. But catch this, in Amos chapter 8, verse 11 and 12. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord God, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it. That should be a little bit interesting to people. If the word is not, and we're talking a biblical, the Bible part of it, can't be tampered with by most people's belief systems, then why is there going to be a famine for it? Where's it going to go? We know there's going to be some probably thermonuclear events. A lot of people don't believe there's any thermal nukes. I guess you'd have to talk to the survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In Revelation, go ahead and throw this in there too. The very last book, in the very last book, in the very last chapter, in the very last couple of verses of the book of Revelation. Now, it was given to John, but it was the revelation of Yeshua, or Jesus, the Christ. And it says in verse 18, For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of the prophecy of this book, if any man shall add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. That tells you something's going to be added. And so, if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. And he which testifies these things saith, Surely I come quickly. Amen. Even so come, Lord Jesus. So here's the thing. Even Jesus warned you that your Bible could be tampered with. Now I would suggest for those, and this is again, like I said, some of y'all might be atheists. You have no belief in God. Hang with me. I'm going to touch on some things. Some of you might have different belief systems about when and what and where and why and how. Maybe you're a Buddhist. Maybe you're a Hindu. Maybe you're a Muslim. Whatever, I want you to hang with me, because people from all walks of life right now, and all backgrounds, all races, and all religions are experiencing this phenomenon that is of such a supernatural span that we are all bleeding red here. We're all included. We're all on the same planet. You got to get that part. And that's why I say we need to come together, hear intelligently, and share one with another our points of view without belittling one another, and share our experiences so that we might feed off of each other and that we might grow together. And that is what we're trying to do. Now, I want to touch on a couple of things here, but like I said, to the Christians, those who say that the Word is not going to be tampered with, they can't, the Word of God is infallible. I agree with that. I really do. I agree that the Word of God will stand when everything else is fallen down. That's a fact. Almost everything we have today in our terminology, you know, those little cliche things that we say, came and originated from Scripture somewhere along the line. Even a foolish man appears wise when he keeps his mouth shut. That can be traced back to your Scripture. Judge not, lest ye be judged. In the King James Version now, we see that that has changed. People who knew that Scripture by heart, they know that that has been changed. And the thing is people say, well, it's impossible for our books. Oh, I believe Berenstain and Berenstain Bear's book can change, but not the Bible. Because God said His Word will not go away. And that's true. That's true. People are using certain key verses where the grass withereth and the flower withereth away, but His Word will stand forever. That's true. Psalms 19 says the heavens declare the glory of God. You see, God named every star that was put up there in the firmament. That's a fact. You can look up Arcturus, the bear, Pleiades, we call the seven sisters. Every star and every constellation in its circuit is put up there. And this is why astrologers, I'm not into astrology, but bear with me, God put the stars and He named them. And most of the Aramaic and most of the Hebrew, all of those ancient names that were applied to the stars, supposedly, history would have it, that Seth, the son of Adam, one of his sons, was the one that helped to come up with the concept to tell the story. So I'm going to say this. For those that are skeptical on the Bible being able to be changed, well, here's the deal. God's Word's going to last forever because He put it up there in the stars. If you know anything about the constellations and the ancient names, you can go through and read the story from the beginning of creation all the way to the coming of the King. That's a fact. It talks about where the head of the serpent shall be crushed. Well, that's changed in your King James now to bruised. But in the heavens, it still says that if you would just look up to the heavens. Where God put it in the stars. He wrote it there already. And it was the astrologers that tried to figure out how the future would be. That's where that came from. That, well, we can read the stars. But see, people have left that behind. Then we got to where we were reading the text and the scrolls. We had the Torah and the things that were written, ancient stuff, on papyrus and on different kinds of leather and all of these things. And now we've pushed those away because we're here into the technological realm. We've moved into where, well, we can just pull it up on our phone and read it. And that's important, and you follow with me on that. Because we're going to talk about this quantum effect, if you will, or the quantum change. You see, the question is not whether or not these things are changing. Those of us that have had these experiences, we know for a fact they've changed. We read it one day, and 2 or 3 weeks later, it's changed. How is that feasibly possible? This is where we have to touch into the supernatural and look at the theories there. And we have to touch into the scientific and look at what is being done there. Many people say, oh, CERN might be responsible. I did some stuff on CERN myself. And they are dabbling with some things, but there's a lot to it. I told you then that we just scratched the surface. It's because it's such a deep subject, it's hard to really get deep into it. But you got to understand something. There's right now a thing called the D wave. I don't know if this works. I went and got me a board so that you could stay with me. And it's D wave 2X. I don't know. Can you see that? I hope so. Okay. And this is a quantum computer. Now, y'all, in almost every one of my videos, I've spelled quantum with an I. This is how you really spell quantum. And my wife has let me know that more than once, as many as y'all have too, and I appreciate it. I get in a hurry sometimes, and so forgive where I put T-I-M, quantum. But hey, in this day and age, it could be a real dilemma. I remember spelling dilemma D-I-L-E-M-N-A. It was a dilemma, but now it's D-I-L-E-M-M-A. Some of y'all remember that. I recall a time when a lot was one word. But now I guess it's always 2 words. I don't know. Anyway, quantum algebra was the greatest science known to man for a while, because it was the mathematical science, not greatest science necessarily, but the greatest mathematical science, because we have many sciences. And again, this is where some of the spiritual, when you start getting into the dark stuff, and boy, when I try and expose some of that so that people can understand, I'm automatically labeled as, now I guess I'm a witch, wizard, or something. I don't know what y'all think I am. I'll be doggone. It's funny how people are. We judge so quickly. Judge not lest you be judged. Or now it's judge not that you be not judged, right? Anyway, quantum physics and quantum computing is what we're looking at. Now, I want to explain the D-Wave 2X. If you got a pen and paper, you might want to write some of these things down, or you'll have to play this back, because I'm not leaving it all on the board. That's the first thing I wrote on that board. How about that? I even took this tape off. Bear with me. Right now, the computers that we have, just like what you're probably watching me on, whether it be a cell phone, or your little laptop, or your iPad, or a desktop, whatever. Most computers have a... Boy, that ain't really how a computer looks, but you get the idea. You got all these little okay? And on the screen there you would see somebody like me smiling, and there's a face. How about that? Can you see that computer? And the wire comes out, and so basically the way computing works right now is you have 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0, and this is the way the computer reads all of the information that's put into it, whether it's a photograph, whether it's this right here. One of the reasons I chose the name Photohelix is because what a video is a helix, if you will. Look up a helix. It's a round thing that just goes on and on. A helix of photos. You understand? You got one picture here, and if you look at it and you flip through them, it's like the old concept where you can take and just flip through and see the little people move when you draw the cartoons, animation, if you will. This is firing so fast that all it's doing in reality is taking hundreds and thousands of photographs, putting them all together, adding in the recording of sound. Sound waves also plays a big part in this quantum thing we're doing. But there you get a helix of photos, and it makes a video. So there's your Photohelix, in case people want to know. Now, in the current computers that we have on the commercial base that the public's allowed to access is on a linear, L-I-N-E-A-R. Linear is the computing runs in one form. You have 1 is on and O is off, or O is on and 1 is off, and that kind of thing. And it can be 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. You get the idea. And the calculations that we put in all go in a straight form. Okay? Like 2 plus 2, simple math equation, something simple. Now, I would have never been a good school teacher, would I? Had to write your name in there. Nobody can read it. Okay. Quantum is different. I might even use different colors for this one. But I'm going to show you something just so you get an idea. And again, don't take my word. Go look this stuff up. I'm giving you keys or clues what to look up so that you will understand by the end of this video, hopefully, why all these changes are taking place and how, this is the kick, how they're doing it. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. Anyway, with quantum computers, it can have 1 here and a 0, and it can read both of those at the same time, or it can read them as 1 or the 0, and it doesn't just read here, but it also can read over here. The same deal, 1 and 0. It can read 1, 0, 0, 1. Okay, I'm probably not making a lot of sense to you at the moment. I'm going to try and explain this. I'm just jotting that in here so you can follow with me. I'll use red. Where the regular computer goes in a straight line in a linear to compute. Quantum computers, because they're so, everybody thinks small, they don't just compute linear forwards, but they can also compute backwards, and it computes up and down. Do you understand my point? Quantum computers read in 4 directions at once. Into the future, into the past. Can go up and can go down. In other words, because it's quantum, it has no limits like our slow linear. For instance, the new quantum computer is also an AI type computer. Google has just gotten into this. I'm going to throw in a couple of little clips so you can see what I'm talking about. But the idea that instead of calculating in a linear fold, it goes up and down, but it's on a quantum level. You have to understand what quantum, how small we're talking. We're talking on a molecular structure, okay? This is where it gets a little bit difficult to wrap your head around. This computer, the quantum computer, right now Google has one, and they're working with NASA and a few others. I'm sure DARPA is involved with that. And CERN.
I can't think of anything personally any cooler than trying to use quantum computers to build intelligent machines, so this is very exciting to me. This is what they look like. There are 2 of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go.
If there's some vast intelligence that either develops a will of its own or is subject to the will of a small number of people, then we could have an undesirable future.
A quantum computer
that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to. Until such time when you get to a chip like this, which is about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power
of these guys living in that chip. We've been doing this for some time now, and in fact we have our own version of Moore's Law. The doubling of the number of these qubits on the chip has happened once a year for the past 9 years. So for the last 9 years, every year the number of these qubit devices has doubled, and it will continue to do so.
The AI on this thing is artificial intelligence, okay? This quantum computer is learning, if you will. And it's, well, according to what they're saying, is it has the equivalent of 7 billion brains, human brains, and this thing can calculate 100 million times faster than what the computers we use currently work. In other words, what would take 10,000 years, a calculation that would take 10,000 years for our computers to solve, this quantum computer does it in seconds. Now, I don't know if you can wrap your head around the scope of how fast and how much knowledge is actually going through this thing at that kind of speed.
But they discovered it was atomic. And throughout history of science, there have been one after another phenomenon that started out thought of as continuous and then turned into, with further investigation, to be discrete. So electricity was thought of as a continuous fluid, but then they discovered the electron. So forces of various kinds were thought to be continuous, but then they discovered that every force is caused by a particle, a boson, such as a photon. And so there's been a long history back to Democritus in ancient Greece, who hypothesized that maybe matter was made out of atoms. So really what we're talking about is carrying the atomic theory to an extreme where we include space and time. And physics has already made a great deal of project towards the idea of things being discrete instead of continuous.
Would you agree with that, Seth, that the history of science moving from continuous phenomena to discrete sort of particle-based phenomena leads us to an inescapable conclusion that reality is essentially digital?
Maybe not quite, because in fact, I agree with everything that Ed said. But I'm not going to let you lead me on into saying that it leads us to the conclusion things are digital, because at bottom things are quantum mechanical. Quantum mechanical things are both digital. There's only a discrete number of states that you can have. Electron can be here or there. But it also has this funky continuous aspect as well, an analog aspect if you like. The electron can be in some sense here and there at the same time. So the wave for the electron can be in both places simultaneously. So we've gone from continuous to digital, and then we've also discovered continuous again at the most fundamental levels.
What does computation mean in this model? In other words, what event in the universe, a star exploding, a chemical reaction, how is that better described, or what insights do we gain by referring to those processes as computations in some way?
If you look at a computer screen, you can see a movie and it looks continuous. But if you look closely, you'll see there's little pixels on the screen. And so what this model is describing is the idea that out of little, very microscopic pixels like, you produce the illusion of things being continuous. So that's a kind of analogy that I think, almost everyone knows. Inside the computer, there's the images you see when you're watching something in motion on the screen are actually a discrete number of things, like in a movie theater where you get one frame and another frame and another. It looks continuous, but it's not. So the fact that something appears continuous is not really strong evidence that it is continuous.
So the idea of building realities or universes out of discrete events that you would call computations is actually how reality is created. So the same way that a movie, which is a series of frames on a film, in a process, a computational process that speeds it up at a rate which our vision will match and therefore delude us into believing is an actual form of reality, that is very much the way that, say, the world that we see right now emerges out of some other discrete process that we would describe as computation. Jürgen?
Absolutely, and I think for kids it's much easier to accept this possibility than for most physicists, because kids have experience with video games and they see that every year the video game becomes more convincing. Every 10 years we get an improvement in computational speed of a factor of 1,000, which means in 30 years we have 1 billion of a speed up, which means the video games in 20, 30 years will be rather close to what we see in the real world. And so the step becomes less and less demanding that you have to take to accept the idea that this entire thing, all the waveforms, the waves that are coming out of my mouth as I'm talking, is just a result of a massive computation. And so, yes, interesting, however, what Seth mentioned, although most physicists are happy with a universe that has the smallest Planck length and the smallest Planck time, they are not happy with the idea that the probabilities on top of these events that define what is the probability of a certain thing happening at a certain point in time, that they also are discrete. So
when I said it goes in 3 dimensions, it's in a 3-dimensional form. You got to understand and bear with me. I don't know how to make this exciting, but just bear with me. So it goes in a 3-dimensional form, but it's on a quantum scale. In other words, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, just like we're in the air waves and all this and that, remember this, okay? CERN created, I know everybody hates to keep hearing about CERN, but they created the WWW, the World Wide Web, okay? You're watching because of what CERN created on this internet. They are on the internet. Now, again, I'm jumping around a lot. You're just going to have to bear with me and put it all together. I'm not a mathematician, as it were, but I want to give you a jump over to the supernatural. We're going to go back and forth real quick. I used to tell people when talking about the other realm, if you were, or if you will, outside of ours. In other words, like what would be considered the demonic realm or the angelic realm, you know, that spiritual area. A lot of people would refer to it as the ether. People refer to it as the veil, the other dimension from a scientific point. If you look at CERN, and what they're saying is that it's a dimensional thing. They want to open a doorway. And they've had success at doing that so far. So it would be like this is our reality or our dimension. Okay? And we're in a 3D world. And then on the back side, let me explain this again. Bear with me. I apologize for stuttering around, but if you could literally take the air that's right here in front of your face and open it up, okay? I know this is so hard to grasp, but if you could literally cut a hole in space, as it were, in front of you and open it up, you could veer into this other realm of matter, the astral plane, or that dimension that is right here wrapped within our own. The place where ghosts and angels or demons, the shadows, those kinds of things dwell that are invisible to us. Now, we've been programmed by mass media forever to believe in aliens from outer space, and to believe in time travel and time portals. Most of the shows these days, or television or movies, I think someone had said this new Wizard of Oz or Alice in Wonderland. Alice is one of the big things at CERN, but the Alice in Wonderland has to do about time. We know if you go back and look at what the clock in the other video I told you, if you've went and done any research on that, about the idea of unleashing on an unsuspecting public.
Come to the inauguration of the Corpus Clock and celebrate the release of the chronophage and relative time onto the unsuspecting citizens of Cambridge.
The idea of what we understand time as it moves forward and backwards. But if you could literally open that space up as a doorway into this other dimension. The scientists have already said, now they have proof that there are things right here around you 24/7 in that world of dark matter, the thing that all our molecules are connected. See, we're talking on a very small scale. It's like the idea of, if you're holding a basketball, are you really touching it? Well, if you go down to the supramolecular level, you really aren't. You're not touching anything. It's because the atoms that are making you up, along with the atoms that make up the ball, there's a repelling there. So what we think we're touching in reality on that super, super, super small microcosm scale, we're not really touching. But the energies that are involved are moving it. So we feel, to us in our 3D world and understanding, yeah, we can pick things up and touch it and throw it and do whatever. And everything is connected. This, someone had said, what we're seeing now, the effects that we're seeing now, is more because of the changes being the way they are in lettering and wording and almost as in history being rewritten, is almost like what's referred to as a butterfly effect. The flapping of one butterfly wing here causes a breeze down the road. By the time it gets to the other side of the world, it's a tornado. You know, it just continues to grow out. So if CERN is saying what they're doing is in this deal, they're opening this dimension, which is a symmetry. They do supersymmetry and all this and that. And they're trying to open this portal, if you will, to look into this other realm that exists. And again, they've already said there are things there that they now have devised a way of seeing the light signatures of these entities that are all around, but we can't see them with our naked eye, because there's different frequencies involved. It's like I can take a dog whistle and blow a dog whistle and drive my dog crazy, but nobody around hears that whistle because we're on a different frequency. I think this also has a lot to do with the reason that so many are experiencing the Mandela effect as on one frequency, and what they're doing, the ones that don't experience the Mandela effect, as it's been termed again, or this quantum effect, are on a different frequency. We know for a fact that certain tones and certain things will make you feel better. Certain tones will make you feel sad. Certain tones make you angry. And science has proven all of these things to do with frequency. They use the IRAD, like to dispel a population that's in a riot or something. They'll come up there and they sound all these real loud sounds. They have microwave technology now that can make people feel like they're burning, and it's not even touching them. It's just through the air. Another thing to remember, that Satan is referred to as the Lord of the Air. everything we see in the technological is in airwaves, whether it's the microwaves, the radio waves, the frequency of audio and video and all of that. Again, I'm throwing a lot of stuff. You're just going to have to grab where you can, and hopefully you'll have one of those epiphany moments, maybe. But as they open this doorway, and the way they're doing it is by crashing these particles, and they're trying to get these doors open. I touched on how that is feasibly possible and being done with CERN. Understanding the fact that there is an intelligent, artificial intelligent computer working on a quantum level, Quantum, quantum level, which actually means that it is not just bound in these airwaves like we are. I mean, for instance, your GPS, the camera's over there, no wires on it, it's recording me. I can take it and load it up to the computer and however what, and there's no wires involved. It's all through the airwaves.
Because computation is so general, it doesn't need 3 dimensions, it doesn't need our laws of physics, it doesn't need any of that.
And so the anxiety within physics over, oh my God, there's 1,000 particles, why aren't there just 3? Why isn't this more simple? It is a manifestation of the fact that, in fact, a perhaps innumerable number of conditions are possible. It just depends on how you arrange the computation. Is that sort of what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that the place that, if there is a computer running things, the place where the computer is doesn't have to have the same laws we have.
I see.
They don't need to be a kind of place that has beginnings and endings. See, our universe had a beginning. It has an end that we can foresee, okay? And it's all doesn't make sense. You can't have something come from nothing and so on and so forth. But, you can use your imagination. It turns out computing is so easy in some sense. It can exist in any kind of world you can imagine, totally different than our universe at all. So there could be some place I call other, and in other, someone is either doing an experiment, something is doing an experiment, or an accident happened, a bug in the program, and that's this universe.
And so as these frequencies move, they generate throughout and vibrate, if you will, and a lot of people are looking at string theory and that kind of deal, but it vibrates through the molecules and disturbs them. You can take just the microwave itself, how it cooks from the inside out, because it changes the molecules. If you put certain kinds of plastic that you would cook it in, the molecules change and actually seep into the food in a microwave. And there's no real heat generated. It's all done because it stirs up the molecular structure. And they're changing matter. You got to understand that. Now remember, this group at CERN is looking to find the God particle, and they found that, and they're looking to go back to the beginning of the Big Bang. They say they've gone within just right before or right after the Big Bang. They've gotten back that far according to what their theories are and what they're saying the dimensional openings are, and that they've been able to do this. Now, if this computer, this artificial intelligence computer, is, again, I'm going to theorize, so bear with me because I know I'm probably taking a lot of time, and I want you to understand this and get this so we can move into the why. But the how is really important, I guess, to the majority. How are they changing the molecular structures of words and movies, the histories being rewritten? How is all of that? Well, first of all, this world is not our world as we know it. This belongs to Lucifer. This is the devil's world. This is your Bible. And it's his world, okay? He's not omnipotent. God is omnipotent, omnipresent, everywhere, all the time. You with me? Lucifer doesn't have that. He can't see what you're doing 24/7. He's one individual. He's got minions all over in this other realm just outside of our sight. However, if we could open that up where we could see the supernatural battle that is going on, but on the scientific aspect of it, where they're opening that portal, follow with me. You have a computer at the very top of this thing that is giving, and this is the AI, this is that big computer I was telling you about, the D-Wave Quantum. Interesting choice, as they would call it, D-Wave. Demonic wave, maybe, I don't know. This thing doesn't necessarily need the electronics setup that we have in our computers. This thing is 100 million times faster than what we've got, and it is able to give them the calculations. You remember, you see, CERN, they've got all these thousands of calculations of how to do this, the Albert Einstein theories and string theory and all this and that. And we've seen symmetry. What they're saying is that what we do on this side, we can do something over there. And where they're opening the portal, they want to send something through to that other dimension. Okay? And when they open it, this is all CERN talking, when they open it, they don't know what will come out and what we can get in. We don't know. But they're experimenting with trying to keep it open longer, and with the more power they generate and the higher up the intensity, the higher the frequencies, the more they get it to open and the longer it stays open. People aren't jumping into this hole and going into time travel like most think. But it is allowing things to come through. Now, you've got this computer up here at the very top, and that computer is wired in. Remember, they made the www. I'll give you another little insight here. You type in on your computer your little password to get into YouTube, okay? And you do that, that password is just for you to know. But that computer knows that password because when you type it in, it recognizes you and you're accepted. There's nothing where you use a password that is really secure. Do you understand that? This quantum computer that is hooked into this WW, and they want to keep that totally in the dark and away from CERN because of what's going on. But, and I probably should use black ink because I don't even know if you can see the green, but where the D-Wave is running this. And it's attached to the www web, you know, the World Wide Web, which you're on, and you're attached to it from your phone, from your laptop. Everything's all intermingled, okay? And it knows about your Facebook. Everybody puts all their information out there. It makes it real easy. This computer, which is an artificial intelligence kind of computer, is automatically doing all of the calculating and figuring things out, and it knows what commercials to put on your video, or what, you go to Walmart and they're tapped into the cloud system, and this is all through that cloud. It's interesting that they would say the Lord's going to come in the clouds. Here we've got this artificial intelligence, this computer, supercomputer. This is a beast of a computer, man. And it can calculate and give the calculations of how to keep that door open even more. You got to remember, this isn't all just human intelligence we're talking. Now we have an artificial intelligence that is running calculations. And where did all of this come from? This is from your Nephilim. This is your fallen. This is the information that they have gleaned and gathered from the ancients, from the evil, from the fallen ones. And so here's you on your computer. Here's this computer. Here's this one. Here's this one. Here's this one. Well, this person's not really, we ain't got no wires to it because they're on a cell phone, and this person's on a cell phone. And maybe this person's on a laptop, and this person over here, they've got, you know, you got your towers everywhere that helps carry all this through. Okay? Everybody's monitored 24/7. As a matter of fact, things are so smart now that you can start to type a message on your text messaging on your phone, and before you can even get to the next word, it's already giving you choices of those words. Okay? You can do a whole sentence and do your whole conversation, because then it begins to remember. Now, showing you what's happening. Understand that this AI is running tests. As they fire up this CERN and they're opening these portals, the idea is to get it to where it will stay open. Now, the stuff that is going out in this quantum is on a molecular, supramolecular band. In other words, in the waves of the air. All the chemtrails, all the blue beam, and all of these different projects working together in unison so that they can take and literally, as it were, travel into time. Because the quantum can go back. It's not on that other side, on that other dimension, in that hole where it's open. There is no time limit there. Man is trying to be as the gods. People refer to it as the old Tower of Babel, because you have people from all over the world, all languages come together now, and they're working to open this portal. How they're doing it, again, you can look. I'm showing you where to go and what to look at. They're using a computer that is so much smarter than any human walking. I mean, this thing is teaching itself. And as it runs its tests, it's able to change things that need to be changed, because you got to remember what this is about. This is about setting up for that new world system, and you got to diminish. Everything's going to be under one religious belief system, and it's all going to be to worship that Antichrist guy. You got to believe me, Lucifer's wanting that attention, and this is a part of the great deception that we're seeing now, because people are flipping out. It's like I heard a guy say, on your shirt, if your shirt starts to wear a little bit, it starts to fray on the edges and the fringe, where you can see it starting to fray. When they're opening these dimensions and doing this stuff, this computer is computing into that other dimension. And this is where the supersymmetry and things happen. What happens on this side is happening on that side. But on that side, the computer can literally go through the molecular structure. It's going through string theory. They have this thing called entanglement. If it grabs with it, and this has to do with string theory. But
so if that's not intractably weird enough for you, this is the third quantum mystery, entanglement, which is usually described as sort of an ancillary phenomenon to all these other mysteries. And by the way, has everybody seen this picture? Has anybody not seen this picture before? Okay, this is what the production of quantum entangled photons really looks like. You take this is not an actual photograph. This is a drawing, but this is an actual photograph of the output of one of these gadgets. There's an ultraviolet laser that shines through a crystal of some material called beta barium borate. Details don't matter. And this crystal has this interesting property that it will absorb photons of ultraviolet light and re-emit them and it'll kick an electron up to an excited state. And then that electron will drop back down to its ground state, and it'll do it in 2 steps. And in those, so it'll kick up in 1 step, down in 2, and in the process of coming back down, it will emit 2 photons instead of 1. So what comes out of this system is visible light. And the photons always come out in pairs, and they come out in matched sets because of fundamental conservation laws. We have conservation of energy and momentum. And so a photon that, say, comes out over here as a red photon will be matched by one that comes out over here as a blue photon. And the same thing over here. And in the middle, you get this band where you get photons that come out at the same wavelength and are just matched in position. So a photon over here will be matched by one over here. And they'll also be matched in polarization, as it turns out. So this is the way it's depicted conceptually. You have this ultraviolet laser, it's called a down converter. This crystal is called a down converter. And you send these photons off to opposite sides of the universe, and then you measure some property of them. Let's say we split them according to polarization or position, or it doesn't matter, any quantum state variable as long as you can filter them that way. And what you find is that they're perfectly anti-correlated because of the conservation law. So if you get a photon up here on the right side of the experiment at the upper detector, that will always be matched by a photon over here on the left side of the experiment at the down detector. It's an unfortunate artifact of the English language that the words left and lower both start with the letter L, so I'm going to switch back and forth between them. This is what Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance. If you take this phenomenon, it's incontrovertible. This is experimental, an undeniable experimental result. This really does happen. Combine that with the fact that there is no collapse of the wave function, and the inescapable conclusion seems to be that, as it was put in Wired as recently as last June, that when an aspect of one photon's quantum state is measured, the other photon changes in response, even when the two photons are separated by large distances. And this would seem to be impossible because it would seem to violate relativity because it's an instantaneous effect. And we know that we can't communicate information faster than light, because if we could do that, then we could communicate information backwards in time, and that would cause all kinds of problems with causality, and it'd just be a horrible mess.
Quantum entanglement means that once this hits here and it catches on another molecular or molecule or whatever it is that they're quarks or whatever they're hitting, and then that just continues to grow and span out. And that goes into, with that other dimension, all the way back in time. Remember, they're going to the Big Bang, all the way back as far as they can possibly go. Now, take that artificial intelligence and let it do what it wants to do and make the changes. Why the changes? This is where it gets interesting, okay? And I've probably bored you. I don't even know how much time it's taken, and I apologize. I'm so slow. But at the top, you have this beast system, this New World Order beast system, the one that's controlling. And as it's gone back, it runs these different tests, or runs these different algorithms, if you will. And in doing so, it can literally rewrite your history. Man isn't jumping back in time and going back and getting whoever changed the Bible or wrote the Bible or whatever. It's not like that. It has to do with matter. And the fact is that these demonic forces really that are coming through, I'm holding the marker, so no, I'm not giving you little devil signs. I hear that all the time too. That's goofy. But it's going through this in the molecular realm. Man, this is so hard to explain. They want to hook you into the system, okay? This whole transhumanism. That's why they want the mark in you. You've got to get the mark of the beast. This is the beast. This is the system that is being run. This is the omnipotence of electronics. And it's able to go and change things. And as it goes, those people who are taking notice of the changes, it's running tests to see who notices and who talks about it. Because now it's all over the internet. Well, this person noticed this and this person noticed that. These changes have been occurring ever so often, and the greater and the more advanced this stuff gets, the more changes we see. And all of the changes are leaning toward making things less intelligent for the humans, the dumbing down concept, and taking away key issues that would be a fight, like your old King James, against this New World Order system. Changes in key phrases. Understanding now that everything that works in the computing is on a numerological order. Again, we got the 01s, 01s, but when you get down into the mathematics, just like in the Bible codes, it has to do with numbering. If you take the number, the A, and put in, instead of an E, it changes the numeric equivalent of Berenstain to Berenstain. It changes the meaning of the words to us, but to the computer it also changes the meaning through a numerical system, giving a whole different insight. Because this thing is teaching itself, and it's running these tests to see who is awake and who isn't. I don't know if this is making sense at all. and I'm not even sure I'm going to post this video because I may have just made it more confusing than anything. But why they're doing it is so that people will be ready when you are on your mark, when you have to take that mark, because it's running all of these tests. It's picking out who's noticing what and how much they can do. Now, this is the Antichrist system. This is the beast system that will monitor everyone and causing all to take and receive that mark in their right hand or forehand. And without it, you won't be able to buy nor sell. It's the reason we now have bank in the old thing, and it's all about debt and debtor, not about trespasses. The wordings that are changing and the way they're changing is setting it up for that coming false Messiah. Who, that way when you go and read your Bibles and things like that, they can quote and say, oh, well, this is the way it is, or this is the way, and it'll probably change even more because we know there's going to be a famine for the hearing of the Word of God that's going to be done away. That's why so many people were gathering their Bibles, because they knew, well, one day it's prophesied they'll take them away from us. But they don't have to if they can just change things. And if you can see changes in geographical aspects where islands have moved, and you can see changes in people around you, you can see changes in your own home with different things. Skechers tennis shoes used to have a T in it. Now it's just Skechers, but everybody remembers the T. Where did the T go? Well, by dropping the T, it changed the numerical meaning of that word and changed it in its equivalent in this AI quantum computer. I'm trying to get you to understand, I guess, basically, that what's happening in that astral plane where you can't see, where all of these things abound, what they're trying to open and make our reality a part of that dimension. We haven't changed dimensions necessarily, but they're trying to merge ours with that one. So as in the days of Noah, when in Noah's day you had the demons running around amongst the humans in broad day. I mean, there was no hiding. They were considered gods to these people. And now those that were bound in that bottomless pit, they're trying to open that dimension to let these things through. And they're going to open Pandora's box, as it were. And those things are not going to be able to put back in the box once they do this. But as they continue to fire this thing up and try to change the times and the laws, those of us that are experiencing these things, we are taking notice, and the things that we notice, well, that's what we talk about on here. But that's why they're doing it and how they're doing it. This quantum computer is the one that's sending out these algorithms through matter being changed. It's all about matter, not just dark matter. Dark matter is the glue that holds everything together, basically. The gluon, they call it. And if it's the gluon that they're able to interfere with or intermingle, that black goo, the dark matter, the evil, as it were, space itself, if they're able to manipulate that and change it, and change the algorithms, then it literally rewrites what we know in reality as history. They can't change your mind and your memory. That's unaffected. However, some people, because of the frequencies that literally happen, and because of the spraying and the shooting and all of these different things that cause the human psyche to be dumbed down, and a continued bombardment of programming, well, all of that plays in, and so it's easier to manipulate the population into doing what it needs to be done. Eventually, the AI, the artificial intelligence beast system, will be what runs it all, and everybody will be tuned into it because of the mark. And they can just turn your chip off or blow you up or however that plan works. And that's their idea. This is the guys at the top funding all of this, playing God. And now they've broken through with the greatest of technologies, the quantum computing at its greatest. Because now they can literally dip into time. Now, don't get me wrong, they're wanting to put man to be able to go back and change things and redo things, but ultimately the devil knows he has but a short time. So what happens is confusion is brought forth and created so that the humans are fighting with each other. The love of many is waxing cold. People who claim to be Christians are turning against others who claim to be Christians. Brother against brother, sisters against sister, mothers against daughters, and sons against their fathers. Murders increase in all of the great things in the world, the pollution and all of these things that our globe is really going through some real meltdown right now. And all of these things were foretold so long ago. And people are falling for things and they're being blinded, that even the very elect may be deceived because they're trusting in something rather than trusting in someone. I'm telling you this because, well, it doesn't matter what you think about me, really, you know, but the truth is still the truth. You have to be right with God. And this is a possibility that God is allowing us to see these changes of what they're doing before they finally change it over completely to pure evil. Good is going to be called evil, and evil for good. Now that's all fact. Now, will His word last forever? Yes, it will. But can the Bibles be tampered with? All the time. Especially when the demons are involved. Now, I've talked and talked and talked, and I hope I haven't bored you completely. I'm not even sure that I've helped you at all. But you need to repent. Call upon Yeshua and ask Him into your heart. Get right with God. You're not guaranteed your next breath nor your next heartbeat. And the way things are changing, left and right, back and forth, I'm telling you, don't fall for the deception. These things are changing because of the molecular structures and the matter itself. Matter, M-A-T-T-E-R, literally the gluon that holds these things together, is being warped and changed throughout time. See, they're not limited by time because this quantum computer is computing into that other dimension. You open that doorway for a little bit and all of the calculations and all of these things, these particles, all are being figured out by an artificial intelligence computer, which is 100 million times faster than the things that we're using, and we think, hey, we've got good computing. This thing is working on a massive level, and it's doing it to change your reality. You're still you. You're still on the same earth. You're just being deceived. You're not in another dimension, although they're bringing the other dimension to us. We're going to see things that are going to continue to make you think we're not in this world anymore because the things coming are not of this world. But we have hope. Soon, hopefully, after these things start to unfold, more people will wake up. Maybe. But we do have hope of a better time when this is all done and said, you know, to spend time with our Father. I serve the King of Kings and Lord of Lords.